Hello everyone, this is Mr. Vanderpool. Today we're going to go ahead and move on to Chapter 6, Political Beliefs and Behaviors. And we're going to discuss how individuals develop their political beliefs. So, who really participates? So different factors are going to tell us who votes. Education is definitely the most important factor. More educated people generally will vote more. Religious involvement, more religious involvement generally corresponds with more voting. Race and ethnicity, whites tend to vote at a higher rate than minorities. And some argue this might be based on socioeconomics. And then age is a big factor. Older people tend to vote more than younger people. Men will traditionally vote, have traditionally voted more than women, but that is becoming more equal. And competitive elections tend to have a higher turnout. Now, over the years, you have seen an expansion of suffrage. You had lifting of property restrictions in 1830. This created universal manhood suffrage, which gave voting rights to all white males. Previous to this, only people who owned property could vote. And then you had the suffrage movement for African Americans from 1863 to 1964. In 1865, you had the 15th Amendment, created voting rights. 1954, the famous case Brown versus Board of Education, separate but equal is illegal. Jim Crow laws are struck down. 1964, you have the 24th Amendment, which banned the poll tax. 1965, you have the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and prohibited things like literacy tests, helped create fair elections, etc. Women's suffrage, in 1920, you had the 19th Amendment, which gave women the vote. And in 1971, you had the 26th Amendment, which changed the voting age from 21 to 18. This was sparked by the Vietnam War. Now, let's take a look at voter turnout. So when political scientists look at turnout, they're going to look at things like registered voter turnout. So how many registered voters actually turned out to vote? Eligible voter turnout. People over 18, what percentage of them actually turned out to vote? And then, of course, if you are going to vote, you have to register to vote. And that is sometimes blamed as a cause for low turnout. And if you want to register to vote, I most certainly encourage you to do so, you would go to the California Secretary of State's homepage, sos.ca.gov. So, some other reasons for turnout. Some say that absentee voting is too difficult. Others say there's paralysis by analysis because there's just too many offices to vote for. People give up because there's too much choice. We have weekday voting. It's not a holiday when you vote, so people don't necessarily have the day off on election day to vote. Some places they do that. You have weak political parties. Some argue that you have weak political parties that make it so you don't have as strong a get out the vote campaigns. Now we're going to talk about public opinion, and this is the distribution of individual attitudes about a particular issue, a particular candidate, or our particular political institution. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at polls, which of course are meant to measure public opinion. And one name that is synonymous with polling is the Gallup poll and George Gallup. He developed the Gallup poll, started this poll in 1932. He was the first pollster. Since 1936, the agency has been very, very successful in picking presidential general elections. So now we're going to talk about sampling. It's important to get it in order for you to have an accurate poll that you sample the correct population and in order to find out how people actually feel about an issue. So if you have a sample, because remember when people get polled, you're basically taking a sample of the population you want to look at, and then that is going to be representative of the rest. It should, at least theoretically, be representative of the entire population. So polls should be representative. They should mirror the population you want the answer about. So if you want to find out how African Americans feel about a particular issue, you're going to ask African Americans. If you want to ask Hispanics how they feel about an issue, you want to ask Hispanics, for example. To get good results, you want a random sample. Everyone needs to have an equal possibility of being sampled. Online polls generally do not have this random aspect, which makes them somewhat suspect. Polls need to be worded correctly. You don't want leading questions. You don't want, do you think President so-and-so is a terrible president? That's kind of a biased question, so you got to watch out for that biased language. And you also got to watch out for straw polls. So these are non-binding polls where people get together to vote for an issue, but it's not binding. Generally, many times, their results are somewhat inaccurate.